Humanities teacher Julia Mole is keen to develop professionally. In only her third year of teaching, she's already a lead teacher for history in County Durham. Now she's considering her next step.
AST is a route that I'm interested in because I love teaching and I really want to advance in teaching. So AST is a great route for that.
Julia's CPD coordinator at Teesdale School, Marjorie Bedwell, is a big supporter of the professional rewards that come with advanced skills teacher status.
It gives people the opportunity to work in a much wider context than would be the case within their own school setting. It gets them out and about within their LEA, it gets them involved in the training of students, and it allows them to have a real influence on the teaching of their subject and how that's conducted within a broader spectrum than simply within their own school.
You can get practical help and advice on continuing professional development from the Teachers TV website. More details later. Julia will need, amongst other things, to meet 6 criteria to achieve the status. This programme will look at those criteria, follow Julia in a practice lesson observation aimed at fulfilling them, and hear from senior colleagues whose advice on getting the status Julia should find helpful.
OK, if we have a look at today's objectives, in today's lesson we're going to discuss the reasons why migrants moved west, and we're then going to categorise those reasons.
What I'm going to do today is to watch a lesson that she's teaching and use those 6 criteria in order to make some notes on which aspects of them I see during the lesson and perhaps give her some guidance on ways in which she might tweak and modify her practice in order to make sure that they're all met fully.
The 6 criteria will be judged by an assessor, so preparation is vital.
The first one is that you need to have excellent results and outcomes to your teaching. Now you might wonder, how can I measure excellent results and outcomes in one lesson? But the kinds of things that you would look for on the day would be evidence that the students are motivated within the lesson, evidence that they're enthusiastic and that they're responding positively to the work that you're setting.
OK, let's have some hands up in the air then, please. I'm going to wait until I've got at least 5 hands up.
The second aspect is that you need to have excellent subject knowledge and specialist knowledge of your particular area. Now, the fact that you're already a lead teacher at Key Stage 3 in history should be a piece of evidence that you can use. Thirdly, they're looking for evidence that you can plan well. You would need to show not only that the lesson that someone comes to watch is well planned, but also where it fits in within the sequence of lessons. What I'll be looking for is evidence that this person is teaching this lesson in the context of some broader scheme of work that's going on, rather than merely as a one-off designed to impress the assessor. Fourthly, they're looking at your ability to teach and the behaviour management aspect of your practice.
In which case, on the day, would they expect to see a range of lessons in terms of abilities and behavioural?
Yes, they would watch 2 lessons and they ask that they're from different key stages and preferably that they're different groups in terms of ability. Fifthly, your ability to assess and evaluate will be tested. Now, what you would need to be able to provide for that is some evidence that in your planning you're differentiating and that you're setting tasks which are appropriate to the ability range of the group.
If you're finished, then you need to tell me so that I can come and explain what I'd like you to do next. We've got one group who are moving on, that's great.
And then lastly, the 6th thing that they're looking at is that you are able to advise and support other teachers.
I'm just wondering if actually somebody who's been in the profession such a short time as I have is actually able to meet these 6 criteria.
I don't see any reason why you can't.
Julia will have 2 of her lessons observed by an assessor. They'll also interview colleagues and pupils and examine a portfolio of documentary evidence prepared by the candidate. Current ASTs, Ralph and Claire, have already been through the process, so their advice to Julia on how to approach it is useful.
So I know that I've got to put together a portfolio, so what do I actually need to do?
If you set up a little folder for each of these 6 strands, and then every time you have an idea, you have a place to put it.
It was really good to go through Claire's portfolio because it's a very good example, and obviously it's quite daunting being asked to gather evidence.
A random selection of resources which I'd sort of annotated to say whether they'd gone well or not, or how I'd used them.
You only need a few things for each strand, and try and decide what your best things are that you'd like to show off.
When you're in NQT and when you're actually training and teaching, you do a lot of that. You do a lot of gathering evidence to prove that you are meeting the standards. So it's really getting you back into that frame of mind, I think.
Especially subject knowledge, that was a little bit more difficult, wasn't it?
It's hard because you know you have it, but you don't tend to have this on pieces of paper where somebody's written a letter and say, my son says you're really, really good at history, and I just wanted to let you know that, it doesn't, you don't tend to have these pieces of paper floating around.
No.
So
maybe the other way around, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good idea, perhaps, to start to gather your evidence a few months beforehand. But if you know that you've kept records for your own purposes through your own CPD portfolio and you've got the evidence to hand already, it can go through in a matter of weeks.
Julia also asks for a few tips for the lesson observation.
I sort of found it useful to sort of talk through before the lesson where it fitted into the scheme of work, so that they had
that's right.
An overview of where it fit in.
Right.
The other thing, it's okay for there to be mistakes that happen. I had a mistake happen in my day, and it's just how I responded to that was what he was more interested in, actually, probably than almost anything else that happened. I think he appreciated that more than a number of other things that happened. So don't worry if things don't go perfect.
So what are the biggest challenges?
I was asked to do it the year before, and I backed out because I thought, wow, that's just it's not me. Surely, they're talking to the wrong person. Surely, there's other people that are way better than me. I think what they're looking for, I think it's important, it's reasonable what they're looking for. They're not looking for you to be one of the 3 best teachers in the country. They're looking for you to be good at what you do. And you have evidence to support that.
It was interesting when Claire and Ralph both said, be realistic, they're not looking for some all singing, all dancing kind of magical teacher, that they're just looking for people who are good at what they do.
That's very true. People moved west because of the railways, not because...
After the lesson, Marjorie feeds back to Julia.
I thought that in terms of the outcomes, it was obvious that they were really motivated and enthusiastic about what they were doing, and so were you. There was a good rapport between you, and I think any assessor would pick that up straight away.
What, you couldn't shoot some buffalo from your steamboat? Come on, I'm sure you could. Like bopping down the river, you could shoot them from the top deck, couldn't you?
When you said to them, I'm going to come back, have a think about that, I'm going to come back and ask you about that later. I thought that was really good because that does challenge the most able students.
Give me an example of somebody who was a group that was persecuted, right? And how were the government involved in that? Have a think about it. I'm going to come back to you in about 30 seconds and I want an answer on that one, okay?
Subject knowledge was very good, and I thought in particular your questioning. If they seemed to be answering very easily, then you would give them something a bit more challenging to think about.
What I would like to do now is go around quick fire, and I'm going to ask you for factors. So I'm going to start with Dave, who's going to give us an economic pull factor.
Better job prospects.
Great. Then I'm going to go to Tom, who's going to give us a social push factor.
Mormons, because they were persecuted.
Very good.
I think that you planned to put in a plenary and then ran out of time.
We didn't get quite as far as I wanted to, but that's absolutely fine. We can do that tomorrow. That's great.
They were getting so much out of the main learning that I just wanted to let them go with that. And, we can come back to that as a starter tomorrow, essentially.
Yes, and obviously, if this were the real thing, I would advise you to make sure that you get your plenary in.
I want you to think about, in the exam, in the essay when you're doing the exam, what possible questions could you be asked about this stuff, okay?
I like the way you built some differentiation in at the end. You got them to think about possible exam questions that could come up. That was good. And I noticed that you asked some groups to give 4 questions and others to give 6.
What kind of questions might come up in the exam regarding this stuff? Good. Exactly. So there's one good example. So you're going to write that on the back. Let's say at least... Let's go for 6. Okay, 6 questions. Let's go for 6. There's 4 of you, so that's 1 each plus like a couple with your heads together.
It was basically based on who was in the group. So some of them, I knew that in the time that they had, they wouldn't get more than 4 done, or I knew that they might get, you know, they would get 3 done, and I wanted to give them that extra little bit of challenge. And it's basically all about knowing the pupils.
The next activity that we're going to do, we're going to move on in our learning objectives, and we're going to start thinking about the reasons why people moved west and categorising those reasons. So, as usual, I'm going to come round now and I'm going to give you a number, and then in a moment I'm going to tell you where to go in your groups, okay?
Was that just random, or had you engineered those numbers so that there was a mix of abilities in every group, or...?
It's a bit of both, but it's mostly just because I want a mix of abilities in each group.
That would be something that you should make sure you point out if an assessor was in. Make sure that your rationale for having done certain things is really clear. Make sure you get the opportunity to tell them what your thinking was behind things. Lastly, this one, excellent ability to advise and support other teachers. Yes, I think that's a really hard one to demonstrate. Well, I think that one way in which you could demonstrate that would be to try to make sure that if you get the opportunity, you show yourself working with a learning support assistant.
Right.
Yeah, because then what you could do is incorporate some of what you have planned with them and what their specific role within the class is into the plan that you submit to the assessor.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
I like the ideas about how I can meet that 6th and quite difficult criteria to meet in terms of supporting other teachers. And it was nice to know that I was of a standard in the other kind of 5 areas.
Well, I really enjoyed the lesson. I thought it was an excellent lesson, so well done.
Thank you. Today's been great because it's really reinforced that one of the key things that you have to remember in teaching is don't be scared to ask for help.
In some circumstances, people might feel that their institution isn't going to have the skills available. Perhaps there are no ASTs on staff who could help, or no one's been through the process within the school. In that case, what I would suggest that they do is to approach their head teacher or CPD coordinator anyway, maybe get in touch with someone on the LEA who could help them and support them through the process, or an AST, maybe in a different subject, within another school in their authority.
So, come on then, has it been worth it?
I think it definitely has been worth it.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Really good, isn't it?
It also rejuvenates your teaching a little bit. You know, I go out and see what other people are doing, and you know, you see lots of good things.
Teaching being what it is, everybody's so incredibly busy all the time that nobody's going to come up to you and say, do you want to do this? Or do you want to do this? You have to, at some point, take the initiative and be responsible for your own career path, essentially.
One key thing to keep in your mind if you get to the stage that the assessor is in is that if your school didn't think you were good enough, then they wouldn't be putting you through this process.
Good luck.
Do you think you're going to do it then?
Absolutely.
Good luck to you.
Yes, all the best.
All I know is that I will give it my best shot, and I've got lots of people helping me, and therefore, hopefully, yes, it will be a success.
The Teachers TV website can help with your CPD. You can use the search facility to find programmes in the archive which may help in specific areas, including advanced skills teaching. Just click on the Teachers TV homepage and look for My CPD to get started.